Hey everybody, this is episode 11 of Brain Power. I'm your host, Bowen. In this episode, I traveled down to Puerto Rico to meet in person with Jeff McDonald and Luke Stokes, who are both early contributors and big contributors to the Morpheus network ecosystem. We had an incredible conversation about all things decentralized AI as always, but more specifically with regard to layer zero and what that means when describing the community of a project, how the values of a community and individual contributors become enshrined in the values of the code and the other things being built within a decentralized project. All things that we should be excited about while building Morpheus and as we look ahead into the future. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Today, Brain Power episode 11 from Puerto Rico with Jeff McDonald and Luke Stokes.
I'm trying to free your mind, but I can only show you the door. You're the one that has to walk through it.
You're listening to Brain Power.
All right. This is episode 11 of Brain Power. We are sitting in an undisclosed location in Puerto Rico.
Otherwise known as Luke's house, I think.
Yeah, otherwise known as Luke's house in Puerto Rico. And I'm here with Luke Stokes and Jeff McDonald. So I'm kind of just want you guys to start out by doing an introduction of who you are, how you got involved into Morpheus. And to be honest, I don't have an exact itinerary for this episode other than you guys were really early contributors into the project, and I wanted to dive into it, like why it matters, and what are we doing? Like why are we doing this?
Sounds awesome. Fantastic. And thanks so much for bringing your gear out here and coming to visit.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a fun day. I'm super passionate about the blockchain space. I got a computer science degree way back in the day and always doing technology stuff. Got into crypto over 12 years ago. And even before crypto, I was in the AI stuff. So I was like reading Nick Bostrom and stuff like that. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is super important. We might all die. We got to figure this out. Copy Tronium, all this stuff. And then I remember back in the day, he interviewed a whole bunch of people and they're like, hey, this is going to be probably 2046 or something like that. That sounds forever from now. So just didn't worry about it, got into crypto. And then with all the, ChatGPT stuff, it started to become more common. So I'm getting back into my passion for AI. And so Morpheus as a project just aligned with my passion for crypto, my passion for decentralized self-sovereign access to intelligence and all of that is the Morpheus ecosystem. And so kind of about me, I'm just a family guy. I've been married 21 years, got 3 kids, love technology, love how we can use it as a tool for freedom, and very excited about Morpheus. I kind of even retired a little bit. I've been involved in a number of projects. I guess I should go there. Got involved in the Steam blockchain, which was a social media blockchain where you could uncensored, you could post whatever you want. That became really important when people talk about free speech. We also had our blockchain taken over by a group of people. And so we eventually created the Hive blockchain.
Technically, that proves it was a legit blockchain, though. If you have the ability to be hostile taken over, that makes it a legit decentralized project.
It was quite fascinating, actually, that whole experience. And from there, I ended up being one of the launchers of the EOS blockchain. It was all delegated proof of stake technology, if you're familiar with those consensus algorithms, and with a group called EOS DAC. And we're building DAC technology, decentralized autonomous community software to build your own DACs and DAOs.
What was the time frame for this, Luke? I just want to give people more context.
Oh, gosh. 2018, I guess.
Okay.
I'm trying to think when EOS launched and EOS DAC was doing that. Also at that same time, I had an e-commerce company for a long time, about 10 years, called FoxyCart. There's a Bitcoin wiki entry in 2013. We were integrated with BitPay, and all our stores could pay with Bitcoin. Nobody did, of course, but just kind of trying to do stuff to make this make sense. And so through that experience, helping launch EOS, I ended up selling my company and working full-time in the crypto industry starting in 2018 and got recruited to help with a project called FIO, the Foundation for Inter-Wallet Operability, trying to make crypto easy to use. So human readable addresses, Luke at Stokes, you can do decentralized encrypted payment requests, and just trying to make it like you could actually be your own bank. Mm-hmm. And so that was really important to me. I'm like, this is going to happen, usability is going to happen, but it has to be better and it's got to be decentralized and self-sovereign. We have some similarities there. We're trying to make crypto easier with your name stuff you did as well. Mm-hmm. And so through that, I just was a consultant advisor, eventually got involved in a bunch of projects. Had 3 full-time jobs at one point. I'm like, wait, what if I just stopped? So 3 years ago, kind of took a break and just been relaxing, enjoying paradise, wing foiling and hanging out with the family. And Morpheus came along, and some friends of mine here in Puerto Rico were tinkering around with it, and I wanted to get more involved. And that's kind of my story up to this point.
Awesome. Thank you.
So Jeff, you go next.
Yeah, Jeff.
Yeah.
Who the heck are you? Yeah.
My name is Jeff McDonald, and I got into Bitcoin in 2013. And in 2014 was the co-founder of a blockchain. It's a smart contract blockchain, a little bit like Ethereum, but Ethereum had a better way of doing smart contracts. And Ethereum came a little bit later after NIM, but much bigger and much more famous and really captured the market. But NIM was a top 10 coin for a couple of years. It was a really interesting way to do smart contracts and was also a leading blockchain in proof of stake that really proved that you could do permissionless, decentralized proof of stake in a good way. And I think that was, in those days when I was working for NIM that I met Luke, like the 2018-19 time, or even before, I'm not sure. It's been a while, but I always admired how he worked, his ethics and his understanding and his ability to do great things. Just a really outstanding person in the industry of blockchain. And, and then we're both living here in Puerto Rico. We're both hanging out here, and both were retired, kind of like Luke. I was fairly retired. I had worked for NIM for like 7 years, but when I came to Puerto Rico, I was enjoying the weather and just enjoying myself. And then I had heard about Morpheus. I always believed that AI was probably more important than blockchain, to the extent that blockchain is great. I love blockchain, but I thought that AI could really fundamentally change things really quickly. And when I saw that Morpheus was both blockchain and AI, and that you could use blockchain with AI in a way that AI could inherit some of the inherent properties of blockchain, which is permissionless, decentralization, censorship resistance, freedom, open access, truth, that if you use blockchain at a fundamental layer to help with AI, then that would be a wonderful thing. And I saw that big AI was doing things that made me kind of question at times. And then I thought, AI really needs some of these properties of blockchain. And by combining both of them, you kind of get the best of both worlds. And so I always believed, if money is so important, like Bitcoin, that we needed Bitcoin, we want freedom money, and Bitcoin has delivered freedom money, and that money was so important that it needed to have these properties baked into it, then probably AI is just as important too, and it also needs those qualities. So that's how I got involved in Morpheus, and love the project, love what we're doing, and excited to see the future coming. I'm super excited that a lot of the base core V1 features of Morpheus have been built, and it's not easy. Like, to build a truly done well, done right blockchain plus AI project, it's not just buzzwords and it's not just hype. There had to be a lot of real work done by hundreds of open source contributors that are contributing to the project, that have done this hard work. And basically, we have a lot of the V1 features have all been finished now. And I'm kind of just, I'd say like the last of them, which is it's being rolled out right now, and will continue to be rolled out as agents. And I'm super excited to see where we will go with the agents and the super agents. And, that I'm here to support the project in however I can.
That's awesome. There's 2 points I want to linger on that you guys had mentioned. The first, actually, we'll start with the second one just because it was more recent in the conversation, was you were talking about it's very hard to organize a truly decentralized project because there's a lot of moving parts. And when everyone is truly choosing to be involved, I think Ethereum's ran into this. Anyone who's followed the story of Ethereum ships slower than many other projects do, but they get it right when they ship, which to me has been kind of the story of Morpheus so far. And we talked about the concept earlier today of layer 0, which is really like the human layer of a protocol like this. I think so far, Morpheus has done a very good job of capturing layer 0. And so capturing people with shared principles who have a shared vision of what this technology will look like and are willing to basically do the things and make the sacrifices to allow that to happen and to flourish. Can you guys touch on that a little bit? Because I think that you two are very much part of that, and kind of have seen it from the earliest, or some of the earliest days of Morpheus to where it is now, but you've also experienced it with other projects. So can you just touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, this is a term I've been using for a while now, this layer zero. And I think it came out from my experience with Steam, watching it kind of get taken over and seeing that the core community that eventually, as we tried to like negotiate with, Justin Sun and different people trying to be like, hey, can we all work together? Realizing that we needed the right of free association to fork the chain and go create Hive. And we brought the most important applications, the biggest games, the coolest things that were happening on Steam came with us to Hive because we had layer zero. The layer one consensus algorithm, that's, proof of stake, delegate proof of stake, proof of work, whatever it might be. But what really matters is the number of human beings that believe what you're doing is valuable. If you don't have that, your blockchain actually isn't secure. And that's what we kind of figured out. You have to have the people that believe what you're doing is valuable. And when it relates to Morpheus and different projects I've been in where there's been DAO governance, there's been different custodians voted in by token holders, multi-sig voting, these different type of things. We often run into situations where you get people that are not creating value, but they're just extracting wealth for themselves. And to align incentives properly in a game theoretical situation like Bitcoin has done is very challenging, and very few projects have been able to pull that off. And one thing I really like about Morpheus is that the people involved are like super high quality people. They're people that you cannot hire in many cases. These are phenomenally skilled and successful people in their own right. And they, because of the structure of the governance, this atomic governance model where basically you're an open source repo maintainer, you do great work, the community supports you, and you get to decide, the resources that you're responsible for, how they're allocated, as opposed to a bunch of different voting and politics and just like drama within the team. There is no team. It's just open source code.
Yeah. I think we've learned that a lot of governance structures are just very inefficient. Like we've seen this with DAOs. DAOs are great on paper, but in practice, it's not that they're not great, but it's hard to ship quickly and efficiently when every single thing becomes a vote. So this is something, the atomic governance structure, I get a lot of questions about from the community. And the way that I frame it, and I'd love to hear if you agree with this framing or not, is basically what it is it's the community deciding that certain individuals or groups of individuals are, the community is just like putting them in charge of one portion of the initiatives or the project, whatever it is, but they can be ousted from that.
Yeah.
And like that power is in the community.
Yeah.
And this is, I say this even with the podcast, like if somebody else, I don't want them to do this, but if somebody else comes along and is like, hey, I'm a better podcaster, we make a better episode, whatever it is, and that becomes the adopted standard for the community, then great for the project.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's applicable to every single part of it. So that's, I think, people hear the structure and they might not be super familiar with it, but that's really like the ethos of how it works is, hey, these are trusted people or teams of people within a community that the rest of the community has decided I'm supporting their vision and them leading this charge. And if that goes sideways, someone else can fork it and build it themselves.
Absolutely. I mean, we're sitting here, in my little banana forest here, and the idea that cellular automaton, nature, millions of years of evolution does this. It's like multiple different things evolving towards a goal, and they are, or just, this reproduction and survivability thing, and the sense that like it could be inefficient in some ways when it's so decentralized, but things ship. Things are tried. People go this direction, that direction. And what I love about the Morpheus approach so far is that there's not any sacrifice in quality. The audits that we've had done, the level of quality code that's being shipped is phenomenal. And that is something that's key. And the last thing I'll say on this is the quality of the people. When you have really amazing people, your governance model becomes less important. And I've seen incredible governance models on smart contracts that still get gamed. You still have people that weasel their way in that are super intelligent and figure out how to extract wealth from these, figure out how to backbite through other channels and break down the leadership in a way that really destroys community. And so I'm really excited about that. I would like to see more people being aware of what Morpheus is doing. I'm trying to create some videos to help explain because there's just so many things shipping. You cracked a joke earlier today, Jeff, that like some of the protocol stuff you're not even aware of until I do a video. And I'm like, bro, I wasn't either. I'm doing the video so I can go learn what our this amazing community around the world is doing. But there's still this sense of like the mass adoption, building up the layer zero, getting enough people to recognize the importance of unrestricted, self-sovereign access to your own intelligence. I've got 3 kids. They need to be able to access the tools to be successful in life. And Morpheus, is done right, is going to enable that. And that's super important. I'd love to hear about your perspective with the community that you built and the tools that you have in mind to help us grow this community, the layer zero.
Sure. The way I describe in my own words layer 0 is I say basically this kind of saying a community, a blockchain is only as good as its community.
Yes.
Meaning like you could have somebody who builds a wonderful tech and launches what is actually superb code, but if people don't believe in it, if people don't use it, it's not really, doesn't have a really big reason to be. And I think that Bitcoin has launched a wonderful code that's been tested and it's been proven and has a wonderful community for money. But there's other things that we can do with blockchain other than just money. And this is one of the things that I'm super excited about Morpheus is there's a lot of Bitcoin OGs in Morpheus that have had time to think about if Bitcoin was going to do this or if Bitcoin was going to do that, how would it do it? And how would we keep these basic ideas? And so I do love the idea, as Bowen was saying, is that built into the Morpheus economic system is the idea of the free market. Yeah. And I think that you need to have the free market be a part of a project. I think a lot of projects get started by a founder, and the project is about the founder and about their ego and about the founder's best friends and about the founder's lieutenants, and they get stuck in this position, and the community just kind of goes around them. And I think that's one of the great things that Satoshi did is he left Bitcoin, which then made a free market for leading voices. And when I was around, when I started Bitcoin, it was Andreas Antonopoulos.
Oh, heck yeah, dude. I used to tweet back and forth with him and tweet him. He was amazing.
He was great.
Awesome.
He's great. And then we moved on to, lots of other people. Today we have Michael Saylor, who's doing a completely different voice. But you have that free market. And Morpheus is encouraging this, and even with something called our subnets, has built an economic principle in a way so that people can get funded to do things like build websites or launch an agent or make an app or make a podcast, right?
Access inference.
Yes, access inference, right? And so when I see Morpheus be able to do things like these subnets and have that built into the economic system, and then have talented people that are working their talent, but then even leaving room for them to become more and step up their game and try to make a better app to keep ahead of the free market and the competition. I just love the system. I have rarely seen anything like this in blockchain within a project. I've seen blockchains competing with each other, but not within the ecosystem. I would argue that Ethereum has achieved this level today, where if someone makes a DEX, that there's enough people and community in Ethereum for somebody else to make a different DEX.
Yeah. There's DEXs I've never even heard of that pop up all the time, and they have insane amounts of liquidity. And I'm like, where did this come from? And they're open competition. I think you're seeing this too with the layer 2 environment of Ethereum now. Like there's tons of layers 2s popping up, all directly competing with each other for TVL and other things. One thing I want to double click on that you also kind of mentioned earlier, Jeff, was the use case for blockchain. So there's been, from my perspective, so I first got into blockchain and the crypto space in 2016. I was in college at the time. And after that whole 2016 to basically 2018 cycle, boom and bust of the ICOs and all that stuff, I remember that the headlines at the time from a lot of media sources were, blockchain is the solution without the problem. Like basically, it's like, hey, there's this incredible tech that can do this incredible stuff, but what do we apply it to? And so what's funny is the concept of decentralized AI, that finally clicked for me, that it fills that hole. That blockchain isn't basically like native money to something that only exists on the internet is not going to be something fiat that's controlled by a centralized entity outside of the internet. It'll be based on cryptography and things that are verifiably true, crypto money. And so as we look to expand intelligence into these systems, like you said, that can basically, and we were joking about this earlier too, that could be the last invention for humanity that people talk about, you have to have payment rails and way to transfer value on a verifiable basis. And the way to do that is blockchain. Also, crypto's UX is horrible. Like the user experience for onboarding new people is terrible. But if I have an agent that can interact with a smart contract for me, it becomes very easy. And so really like the harmonious nature of those two technologies together, that's what clicked for me and was like, this is the thing. This is the solution for what problem does crypto solve. And the AI just applies to anything. Like I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on any of that or all of it.
So I believe that fundamentally blockchain is a freedom technology, and it thrives best in markets where the centralized and incumbents have really just overstepped their balance and their power and really done things that they probably shouldn't have, that were not in the best interests of the people. And so a blockchain can come in as a freedom-based technology and then give that freedom back to the people. And so I believe that Bitcoin is the freest form of money. And then when you talk about agents, what are they going to want to use? Are they going to want to use a heavily regulated, money where there's only banking hours, or they're going to trade on Wall Street? Is an agent really going to want to trade stocks on Wall Street only between these certain hours of a day? Or is it going to want 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, no limits, as fast as it can go, anywhere with anybody in the world?
Could make its own money.
Yes, could make its own. It's definitely the more free form of money. And so that's the one that the AI is naturally going to choose. But likewise, like I said, there are people that seek to control AI, that seek to regulate it, to seek to say what it can and can't do. And those AIs and those agents are going to find their best home and their most comfortable home and the home with the least friction in the blockchain-based ecosystem. So I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely. You reminded me of another analogy I like to make. I think it's important, and you were familiar with this as well. We're the older dudes, 46. But I was building websites in high school in 1996. I was, and I graduated then in 97 and 2001. Graduated from college, computer science degree, and I was right there in the 2000 dot bomb craziness. And I can remember very specifically back then when like Microsoft, Sun Microsystems, Oracle, they had their plan for the internet. It's going to be their tech stack. It's going to be this, and this. You're going to use, SQL Server with IIS and with, this different setup. And what we all know happened is that open source won. Open source eats the world. You got Apache, MySQL, PHP, Perl, like these different things took over and is most of the internet even to this day. And the idea behind that is you just get the largest group of people that can contribute. The whole world becomes basically your team member making the thing better. And so when I saw the open source nature of Morpheus in the sense that like, okay, OpenAI was supposed to be that. If you've listened to Elon
Believe
talk
it or
about
not,
the
it was
founding,
a foundation at one point.
it was a
nonprofit.
It was a nonprofit. It was founded on these principles going. And when we talk about that, you said, the last invention human makes, I like to think there's three interpretations of that. One, not so good one, is the doomers love this, that we're all going to die because we invent this thing that just takes over.
But then it's not going to matter anyway.
It's not going to matter anyway. That's a good point. Number two is that, it's the last invention we make because it's going to invent everything else for us. And we just live in this beautiful utopia and everything's just, zero marginal cost society and everything's wonderful. That's a great outcome. And then number three is that we could like potentially merge with it, become transhumanist, something or others. I get to upgrade my, consciousness container, if you will, get a better system. But the idea is that this is critically important. And some people say it's probably the most important invention humanity will ever make, even if you don't think it's the last invention. And so we look at that and go, okay, do we want it open? And I think we do. Do we, if we know open source is going to eat the world in this category also, it's not going to be these guys' servers or those guys' approaches. It's going to be the whole world contributing to building this and doing it in an open, verifiable way. And back to what you said earlier as freedom technology, I look at a blockchain as global nonviolent consensus. We've never had that as a species. It's always been whoever has the most violence and their ability to use it are going to be the ones that actually take over and steal the resources, steal the land, do whatever, and then rewrite the history and be like, that's what consensus was, and that's just not the way things should be. Ideally, if you want to have a meritocratic approach to things. So I look at blockchain and Bitcoin in particular, the game theory dynamics behind it, all the contributors, all the people that are being supported by supporting the currency. And then again, I think it's the natural outcome of open source agents saying, hey, we're going to use this tool because it's the most effective, because they're not going to KYC an agent. They're not going to get a bank account. They're not going to have to have their social security number.
But it's not even that they won't. They can't.
They can't.
This is the thing. And this is what people who aren't really that into blockchain or maybe not into AI, let alone DAI, we're not just building a system that they won't do these things. They can't do these things, which is a whole nother thing. And it's it just comes back to the right to privacy, the right to speech, in my opinion, which code is a reflection of speech. Is code not just written down words and numbers? Is it any different from writing a book? Really? I mean, it's not. And so that to me is like the ethos of why this is so important, and like the backbone of everything you just said is it cannot be controlled by violence or by any geographic constraints, which is the other thing. Because up until now, really, Bitcoin, how you had no way of storing, transferring, and verifying value with no geographic restraints. Well, now you do. Well, now apply that to intelligence. And it's just so obvious to me. Like the more I think about it, the more it's like, oh yeah, this is inevitable. Whether we, and Jeff, I think you said this before, whether we build it or not, it's going to be built. So let's build it. Let's everyone, and I don't mean just us, I mean like everyone, like let's build it. It's inevitable.
I believe that all inventions are embedded with the values of their creators. So there's a big argument that that technology is neutral, and I hear a lot of people make it, and I understand that like this thing is neither good or bad. It's how you use it. But I firmly believe that a good person embeds the values of their goodness into their creation, and that it is more likely going to be used for good. Doesn't mean it's always going to be used for good. It just means that it's more likely going to be used for good. And that somebody who is creating something with a bad purpose, it's more likely that it's going to be used for a bad purpose. And whether we knowingly embed our values into it or unconsciously embed our values into the creation that we create, it's definitely happening. And I'm super enthusiastic with Morpheus because a lot of deep thinkers who have really thought about this and are ethical are working as hard as they can to make sure that Morpheus is embedded with these really good values. Things like open source, things like having a global way to communicate and come to consensus in a peaceful way. I want my agents in the future to come to consensus in a peaceful way.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good way of doing it.
Yeah.
I want to add to that, in that I thought of this actual idea a while back. I was noticing like a drip of water can cut through rock. It's just drip, 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 and it can literally like do incredible things, which would be very counterintuitive. And I thought about that exact thing when we use software. That operating system, that AI agent platform, whatever, when we use that software, we're using every single day. Drip, drip, drip. The consciousness, and you have to get all panpsychists to believe this, but the consciousness of the people involved in that project, their ethos, their worldview, their value system, it's going to be in the UI. It's going to be in the characteristics of how they designed the permission systems and how they dealt the whole thing. And that's going to be dripping into your consciousness every time you use the tool. So I have that same perspective that, tools they're not moral, they're not good or bad, they're just what they are. It's how you use them. It's your consciousness that you bring to that tool that matters. But that's why I've been thinking a lot more in the last 2-3 years about consciousness and less about the governance of the software itself. Because if you build amazing things with amazing people, that's what matters. You can have incredible governance, but if you don't have great people involved, someone else can come along and just eventually find a hack around it. I've seen it again and again throughout my whole career. So yeah, I'm very excited about the people themselves that are involved in Morpheus and the ideas, like you mentioned, privacy and things of that nature. These are really core components. But what I like about Morpheus is that we recognize that even we, with our passionate values that we're so convinced we're right about, are not constraining the system.
No, it's agnostic to use case.
It's completely agnostic, meaning if someone says, that's great and all, but I want to give my agent, my super agent, every single piece of data about me possible, because I want it to act as my assistant, as my CEO, as my supervisor, I want it to have access to make my life better. That's something you can build.
Yeah, if you really wanted to, you could build an agent that reports all of your own data to any centralized entity or government you want, if you really wanted to.
And we can't constrain that.
Yeah, I don't think you should, but like you could do it. Yeah, but that's the point.
That's the thing. Is like if you actually believe in these principles, these values, and these systems, where it's like, hey, it's kind of like free speech. It's like, I may totally disagree with what you're saying, but I'll defend your right to say it.
Exactly.
I may disagree with certain apps that show up. And again, this is the beauty of the whole kind of decentralized ecosystem. Let's say we have a certain app discovery interface, and it's showing things that we disagree with. Well, as a parent, I could say, you know what? I could launch my own app discovery interface that has settings that filters out that stuff.
Yeah. Oh,
and then we might actually have people, you know what? I'm going to use that. And then the usage of the individual people saying, what do I actually want to participate with my conscious mind in, will be determining through that nonviolent process of consensus finding.
Yes,
what gets used.
I love this point too, because the idea is not that it's inherently bad either to have filters. It's knowing what they are, and that's where the open source piece comes in. That's so important. Is if people are filtering, like collectively as a community, if people are choosing to filter certain things because it's in the best interest of, and everyone disagrees because that's what they want collectively. As long as it's transparent to know that that's what the biases are, that's what the decisions have been, that's an amazing system. Like, I don't want, I think none of the community that I'm aware of wants lawlessness or anarchy. They just want rules that make sense, that are agreed upon by consensus, and offer some form of liberty for the individual. And that's what this is.
Yeah, it's funny. So I hung out with the anarchist volunteers community for a number of years, been to like Pork Fest.
Okay, maybe someone wants anarchy.
Well,
I don't know.
It's funny because a lot of them will say that, anarchy originally comes from without archons, without rulers.
Sure.
So it's the sense that these people can't control your life. And so anarchy is essentially the lack of people controlling your life. That said, it doesn't mean no rules.
Yeah.
It means no rulers. And it's funny that a lot of...
Maybe I do want anarchy.
Well, that's the thing, right? The more you dive into the philosophy of voluntarism and these kind of things, a lot of the early Bitcoin people like myself, were into this philosophy because they sense of like, hey, non-aggression principle, enacting my will over another conscious being against their will. This is a violation of their sovereign right. They own themselves. They own themselves in the past, their property. They own themselves in their future, which is their liberty. And all these kind of principles are so important. And that's why, a lot of the people, David Johnson, Eric Voorhees, a lot of early people involved in Morpheus, they just live and breathe these principles.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of like the crypto founders of these principles as part of our ecosystem. And so I do love the idea that, look, we can all participate in different ways, and we can actually say, you know what, that's probably not cool. I'm okay with you filtering that out as a default. And if you really don't like that, you can fork it, make your own thing, and make all that stuff available. But ultimately, I don't want to have to, for example, have a surveillance state to make sure nobody is 3D printing, a pathogen that could wipe out 1 billion people. I'd rather just have that kind of information be like, hey, you know what? Kind of like nuclear weapons, maybe not everyone needs a nuke, And so we have to think about that stuff. But this is part of I look at a lot of this as a forcing function, an acceleration of the development of our own consciousness as a species. Because we're like, we better figure this stuff out or we're going to destroy ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. And so this is kind of doing it in open, allows us to see what's happening, to then actually make a decision. Do I want that? First in my home, then in my community, then in my, whatever legal jurisdiction, nation state I exist in. Do we want these things to exist? And if we're not doing it open, we won't even know what's going on.
Yeah. Well, and, if we do destroy ourselves, then the great filter theorists were right. And we'll have another chance in a couple 100 million years. Also, when you laid out the 3 potential outcomes, for those statisticians out there, 2 out of 3 is not bad. We've had way worse odds. If you would have made me guess between the Manhattan Project and 2025, what were the odds of us blowing ourselves up in the nuclear winter? I would have said way higher than 2 out of 3.
Oh, yeah.
So we're doing good.
That's great.
We are doing good.
Yeah. I guess, guys, before we wrap up, do you have any last thoughts or anything to leave the community with, or just anything else you want to cover?
Well, I'll go ahead if you want. So I'm really excited again about how many different things are happening in the Morpheus ecosystem. It's a standard call out. If you're something that you want me to do a video on or someone else wants to talk about, happy to dive into it and get it out there to the community, because there's just so much happening. Most of us, can't even keep up. So I just want to give a shout out again to Anton. He's doing a phenomenal job in the Discord with the announcements. That's a great way to know what's going on. So join the Discord, join in there, watch those announcements. It's the only Discord that I actually keep the notifications on because the announcements are so high quality. And so I want to say that. I would also say just the pieces are coming together. I keep seeing this day in and day out. The pieces are coming in together where you see that's the part that's going to use the Morpheus decentralized marketplace for inference. That's the part that's going to use, the agents are going to be discoverable. That's the part where the capital is going to be rewarded. And this is the part where the people who are building these core pieces, the code bucket, are going to happen. So it's all coming together. And I just want to encourage people too. The last part is don't fear utility. In 12 years in the space, it was January 2013 when I got in. I've seen this over and over again. Speculators fear utility. They're like, I can make 100x on this project, so why would I go do this thing that actually benefits human beings, that has this utility? And they like compare it to other market verticals and think, oh, I could just go use this product off the shelf. Why would I use this decentralized thing? I'm not going to get my 100x banger out of it. So let's go do some meme coin or some NFT or whatever. I would just encourage you, we have to grow up as an industry and get beyond that and recognize these are important tools for humanity. We have to support and build them. And that means time, attention, money, resources, all those things.
I think you said it great. No, I love it. I let's end there. That's a great way to sum it up.
Perfect.
Yeah.
It's also starting to rain. So we're going to get out of here. Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you again to both Luke Stokes and Jeff McDonald for jumping on this episode of Brain Power and discussing decentralized AI, the implications of decentralized AI, what we're building for, the principles behind it, why the combination of blockchain and AI are such a perfect, harmonious match for one another. I hope there were some valuable takeaways from anybody who listened to this. As always, this is part of the show that no content creator likes, and I repeat myself every single week, but it really does help if you could like or subscribe to the channel on whatever platform it is that you're using to consume this. It really does go a long way for us to expand our reach into the broader community to help out the Morpheus project. Seriously, it is a really huge benefit. So thank you so much. And also, the builder contracts V2 are in the process of migrating at the time of publishing this video. And so by the time you're listening to this, it is likely that those contracts will be deployed. And so if you are interested in staking more tokens to the builder subnet for Brainpower, please consider doing that. There's work going on the back end to develop the subnet out further, and I will keep you updated on that as updates become available. In the meantime, thank you as always, and special thank you one more time to Jeff McDonald and Luke Stokes, specifically Luke and family for letting us record there. Much appreciated. It was a huge pleasure. Lastly, and as always, I look forward to seeing you all again next week.
I'm trying to free your mind, but I can only show you the door. You're the one that has to walk through it.
You're listening to Brain Power.